Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. Before I get into Luke 24, Jesus has risen. I want you to remember the lightning scriptures. Okay, lightning in Exodus, when the Jews are at the mountain and God thunders and lightning, and they're scared. The lightning being compared to things like the flashing sword, chariots. Okay, it is a war spirit, and it's associated with the heavens, right? It's like the falcon diving. It's striking down and hitting the material world. It's cutting through the air and not really phasing the air and the elements in the air, and it's striking the world. That is the communication from God to the naked eye, which is extremely, extremely important. People didn't always have microscopes and things like this to understand what was happening. So God's communication at this point in history, especially, was to the primitive man, to the animals, to the primitive man. Okay, so we're going to talk about how there's angels whose clothing is gleaming like lightning. Why is it gleaming like lightning? Why bring that up? Because they want you to associate with the coming of man. That's give me the coming of the Son of Man. When lightning flashes in the sky and is seen from one end to another, is what he said. Okay, so it will be with the coming of the kingdom of God, with the coming of the Son of God, the Son of Man, that his warrior spirit, for those who have an eye, will see that it's coming from one point to another, right? It's where is this coming from? Okay, for example, if I jumped 500 feet in the air naturally before there was computers and anything like that, people will say that's divine. How did he do that, right? It's astounding. It's awesome. Okay, it's awe-inspiring. Inspire alpha. Inspiring, right? They're trying to watch me and then trying to pretend that they are me, trying to pretend that they're inspiring like I am, but nobody believes them. They shot their bolt. They've been BSing with the Da Vinci Code and the Greek theater and all this stuff for so long, with all their propaganda and their silly rituals and traditions and rules that people don't believe them. But the lightning symbolizes the spirit of God coming, God's spirit coming to, in a warrior form to kind of explain things, to set things straight, to marshal things, to punish, right? It's this divine event, lightning striking, and it also has a certain effect if you're on the sea in a boat, okay? And you see this lightning strike, you're like, wow, it might destroy you. So it shows you that you're at God's mercy and that you can't beat God. He who made the lightning, if you could control the weather, it means nothing because God made the lightning. That means nothing. God's power means everything. Okay, on the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. You remember the Sunday is the first day of the week, is when I was told when I was younger, and they switched it to Monday. So the first day of the week became the last. Okay, but it's not as simple as that, because that is an occultist BS way of doing things. The moon will never be greater than the sun. Again, the moon will never be greater than the sun. It takes a satanic fool to think that the lunacy of people that worship the lunar cycles in the moon, right? La lune, the moon, lunar cycles, lunatic, lunacy. To think that that is greater is insane. So for those who go insane with ritual madness, they might believe that. But the moon never becomes greater than the sun. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were wondering about this, suddenly 2 men in clothes that gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, he has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still with you in Galilee. The Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of sinners, be crucified, and on the third day be raised again." Now, a lot of people don't appreciate this. It is profoundly insulting and sick for attractive females to shun me for these sinners. These are mockers. They are vile creatures like the violator in the movie Spawn and the cartoon Spawn. Vile, vile, sick, horrible people, regardless of how hygienic they try to be. They send fraternity people to do sickening pranks. These are whoopee cushion weirdos. These are sick, immature scoundrels who make it so I have to interrupt my video to explain this because it needs to be understood. Okay, there's a bunch of weird, dumb and dumber people in frats and corporate groups and religions. They go around harassing people who practice acting in Masonic lodges, theater arts, so they pretend to be sincere and they trick the chick, right? The chicken, the scaredy cat female. She's a trick. She's tricked by idiots and she's too afraid to correct her mistake when she realizes it. And it is an abomination to God for you to pretend that the English, the French, the Americans, the Israelis, for you to pretend that anybody else, especially as they have frats harassing me through their various institutions, military, police, intelligence, or otherwise, contractors, is an abomination for you to pretend that they are right with God. An abomination for you to pretend that their churches are right with God. Okay? They didn't want me to explain this. They shouldn't have been doing evil things, and they certainly shouldn't have been persecuting me. All right. Then they remembered his words. When they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them who told this to the apostles. But they did not believe the women because their words seemed to them like nonsense. Peter, however, got up and ran to the tomb. Bending over, he saw the strips of linen lying by themselves, and he went away wondering to himself what had happened. On the road to Emmaus, there's all kinds of wordplay on that word, but I'm going to leave it alone. It's really not that important. Now that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles or 11 kilometers from Jerusalem. Right, you get 7-Eleven for whatever reason. There's a store in America called 7-Eleven. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. But they were kept from recognizing him. So how were they not able to recognize? Someone starts walking along with you, and you know that he said that he was going to rise. Why don't they recognize him? Well, the cultists would explain that it's not the same body. People who believe in, the stories of Khan. The story, basically he never rose from the dead, but some people believe that people faked rising from the dead, that he had a twin. So there's a twin who's trying to pretend to be him, and they don't recognize him. And after they start breaking bread and doing stuff that may have been drugged, they see him after that. Well, we'll get to that. Okay. But they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people." Okay, we'll get to that. Powerful in word and deed. This is the description that's been given to Moses and Nimrod. Now, obviously, David is credited with having a certain power, like Samson and other characters in the Bible, because it's a matter of martial power, right? These are ideas that are superimposed on martial artists, right? Someone strong like Samson, if he can't outmaneuver people and strike them down effectively, then his strength means nothing. It's like a wild boar charging a skilled hunter who could kill him with a surgical strike. You see what I'm saying? Cut off his legs and what have you. So these ideas are basically craftsman, brute, knucklehead ideas. We see in Acts 19, okay, that the story of the craftsmen persecuting the Christians, right? Bible is by Bel, who's the deity of craftsmen. They crafted false idols and things to worship, and they worship, a lot of them have a kind of husky, kind of military, police, construction worker, fireman kind of build, okay? But then a lot of them are shorter Jewish looking people. Bel has two main forms, a kind of craftsman build and a kind of a short Jewish nerd build, as we see in his ball form. You see Zeus is kind of, his Hephaestus-ish, right, kind of fluffy. Okay, so this big fluffy guy, kind of skinnier Hephaestus guy, which is, kind of skinnier fireman, kind of, but who still has a kind of husky craft body. And then you see kind of effeminate English guys, tall and skinny, like Jesus is depicted. They're also Satan's image as well. And you see, fairy-like guys, like the angels are depicted like kind of fairy Jewish. They're kind of white, Germanic, English, French-ish in the sense, and Jewish shaped and seeming fairy spirits, because these are LGBT pagans that run the institutions on the planet. Okay, so where were we here? All right, so he was powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. We'll get into Genesis 10, and it was really Acts 7, not Acts 19, with Nimrod and Moses later if we have time. I'll probably have to make another part to cover that. Okay. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. So he said they're rulers, right? The people who rule the Jews, okay, and their chief priests. As you see here, your governing class failed you, and everyone's following suit, and they're outside the divine order as well. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the third day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus, right? So remember, again, the lightning clothing, there's a reason angels are depicted with swords and spears and what have you. Right, it's a martial spirit of God. Okay. You see sometimes they're depicted with armor because they're unfairly superimposing their kind of pagan craftsman arts and pagan war arts on the divine martial arts of God. Okay, where we're here. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the woman had said, but they did not see Jesus. He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going further. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. Okay, so the bread, is like the communion mass with it's the wine is the blood that was shed for them. The bread is the body that was killed for them. So it's not the body itself or the blood itself. It is the spirit of the sacrifice that was given. So the bread is symbolically reminding them of the spirit of the sacrifice. And they say, okay, you're the guy who sacrificed. I see that spirit of sacrifice in you, kind of thing. Okay. Again, I'm not going to be coming back in spirit to this world. Okay. When I'm gone, my spirit leaves with me. Okay. God's spirit is not going to be among man. It's just going to be trampling man. No one's going to be right with God. Okay. They asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together, and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the two told what had happened on that day, and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. Okay, so everyone sinks lower who's outside the divine order. It's doubled for what they just did right now, for interfering with this video. Okay, the heart is burning, and it's symbolic of purging. The heart is the core of somebody, has a connection to the soul, right? Mind, body, soul, spirit. Mind, body, heart, soul, spirit. It's like the essence of the soul's point, right? Your heart, right? The Lord weighs the heart. People may think their own ways are right, but the Lord weighs the heart. And so it's burning, it's purging the wickedness in there symbolically. It's burning because of the Spirit of God, okay? And wickedness, the Spirit of God causes wickedness to burn like a fire.